Knowing he could not hold Gonzales with his meager forces, Sam Houston ordered the town burned and withdrew toward the Colorado River. He evacuated civilians from the settlement and then instructed his soldiers to leave no roof large enough to shelter a Mexican's head. On March 17th, Houston reached Burnhams Ferry. The general soon realized, however, that the site was indefensible. Instead, Houston burned the ferry and marched down the Colorado's east bank until reaching Bensons Crossing on March 19th. On March 21st, Mexican General Joaquin Ramirez y Sesma's division pitched camp opposite Bensons Crossing. Texian volunteers urged Houston to attack the enemy across the river. But for 6 days, Houston waited and watched. Ramirez y Sesma, unable to ford the swollen Colorado, did the same. Houston had recently received reinforcements, and his scouts reported that Ramirez y Sesma had about the same numbers that the rebels did. Texians eagerly awaited a fight, and Houston hinted that one was in the offing. Then, on March 23rd, Houston received news that upset all his plans. Writing Secretary of War Thomas J. Rusk, he bemoaned,
"You know that I am not easily depressed, but before my God, since we parted, I have found the darkest hours of my past life."
Houston wrote this upon learning of Fannon's defeat and capture, accurately describing the indecisive Goliad commander. The general lamented,
"He is an ill-fated man."
Houston ordered a withdrawal to San Felipe de Austin on the Brazos River. The rebel army reached San Felipe on March 28th, but spending only one night there, Houston ordered a retreat to Jared Gross's plantation some 20 miles upriver. The abandonment of San Felipe created a tempest in the ranks. The hub of Stephen F. Austin's original colony, many believed it the most important point in Texas, one that Houston should defend at all cost. Instead, Houston burned it down. Houston spent the following 2 weeks at the boggy campsite across the Brazos River from Gross's plantation. It proved the Valley Forge of the Texas Revolution. Gross turned his fine plantation house over to the Army surgeons for a hospital. Following weeks of constant exposure to the elements, many soldiers had fallen prey to various illnesses. The Army employed the time at Gross's to heal and learn the rudiments of linear combat. On April 11th, 2 cannon arrived in camp, a gift from the citizens of Cincinnati, Ohio. The men dubbed them the Twin Sisters. As the men drilled and regained their health, their confidence returned, but not their faith in Houston. All he had done was retreat. Would he ever stand and fight? The interim Texas government was also losing patience with its timorous general. President David G. Burnett dispatched Secretary of War Thomas J. Rusk to deliver a scathing letter to Houston.
"Sir, the enemy are laughing you to scorn. You must fight them. You must retreat no further. The country expects you to fight. The salvation of the country depends on your doing so."
On April 12th, Houston broke camp at Gross's, crossed the Brazos, and headed eastward. He did not deign to reveal the Army's destination. Many soldiers speculated that they were traveling toward the enemy. Others suspected that they were bound for the Sabine River and shameful safety. Houston said nothing and rode on. Historians have long pondered the question, what was Houston thinking? American General Edmund P. Gaines had established Fort Jessup and Camp Sabine on the east bank of the Sabine River. Houston maintained communications with Gaines and apprised him of his movements and intentions. U.S. President Andrew Jackson had authorized Gaines to engage if Santana crossed the Neches River. Houston became intent on retreating into East Texas. If he could lure Santana across the Neches, it would trigger American intervention and guarantee victory. This is what I have termed Houston's American strategy. In 1845, Houston admitted the following.
In the course of 2 days at Gonzales, I received the lamentable information that Colonel Travis and his noble compatriots had succumbed to overwhelming numbers and had been brutally slaughtered. I immediately sent a courier to Colonel Fannin, ordering him to destroy all of his artillery that he could not remove and retreat to Victoria, and informed him of the fall of the Alamo. D. Smith, having returned from a scout, reported the enemy advancing. I then determined to retreat and get as near to Andrew Jackson and the old flag as I could.
Note that Houston made his determination at Gonzales. He obviously never intended to fight on the Colorado, nor on the Brazos. Did Houston lie to his men and government officials when he repeatedly reported that he intended to defend the Texian settlements? Yes. What other conclusion can one reasonably draw? But let's not be too hard on Houston. Given his men's inexperience and ill discipline, given the enemy's numerical superiority, given the lack of vital supplies, and given his desire to add Texas to the federal union, the American strategy probably was the most prudent option. But Houston failed to consider the fighting spirit of the rank and file. Texians had no intention of doing nothing while a Mexican dictator laid waste to all that it had taken them 15 years to build. On April 16th, the Army continued to march eastward. The soldiers were abuzz, for they approached a major crossroads, both literally and metaphorically. At the forks of the road, one prong led north toward Andrew Jackson and the old flag. The other led south toward Harrisburg and the enemy. That night, Secretary of War Rusk informed Houston that the following day the Army would take the southern fork. Crestfallen, Houston ordered his staff to inform company commanders of Rusk's decision, and that, in doing so, he yielded to his own judgment in obedience to his superior. On April 18th, the rebel army arrived at a location across Buffalo Bayou from a smoldering Harrisburg. The Mexicans had just burned the settlement. Later that day, scouts Erastus D. Smith and Henry Carnes brought in a Mexican courier. He had carried documents that revealed that Santana personally commanded a small detachment which was nearby. This was an opportunity too juicy to ignore. Discovering Santana's whereabouts, Houston also knew his adversary must travel via Lynch's Ferry to join his main force. If the rebels could arrive first, they might surprise His Excellency. At mid-morning on April 20th, Houston's 900-man army reached Lynch's Ferry. No Mexican soldiers were in sight. Houston had won his race and could pick his ground.